Good evening. This panel we want to focus on to how to increase the electric vehicle penetration in commercial vehicle segment and mainly in heavy duty trucks and medium duty trucks and buses. So I would start with Manish Gupta. You please introduce yourself and would like to know your views regarding how to actually kickstart the penetration of electric heavy duty and medium duty vehicles.
Sure. First of all, thank you everyone. I think it's a last session and today's match also. So thank you for staying with us. Uh, uh, I represent a company called Porter. We are into tech-based intracity logistics. We do approximately 7 to 8 million trips a month. We work across 20 cities and in multiple categories from a two-wheeler to a 14 feet. EV has been a big interest area for us, and we have been heavily invested in EV for last 1.5 year, majorly into two-wheeler and three-wheeler space. So this is about us. Um I was going through one data, and we are completely sold on government's vision of being completely 0% emission standards by 2070, and we intend to partner the government on this. And here, the trucks and especially the larger trucks have got a major role to play because Indian road logistics is heavily dependent on trucking. Almost like 66 to 70% of logistics is happening through trucks, and trucks contribute to almost like 14 to 15% of total emission. So if we have to go 0% emission by 2070, it becomes important that by 2040 or 50, probably we have to go 100% ZTE. Uh, Difficult thing because if I talk about trucks today, I think we are still jostling with even having the vehicles apart from the multitude of issues. So I think it's a long ride, and we are just at the beginning and the first point of it.
I would request Mr. Purvak Kapoor, Vice President Technology, Euler's Motors, to give his views about how to accelerate the process of commercial vehicle penetration.
Firstly, thank you everyone for staying along for so long with us today. And indeed, a fantastic question. So, my view on adoption of electric vehicles have mostly been like we have been blessed that we are in a commercial department, and commercial department customers understand maths really well. So, their understanding of buying a vehicle is not purely a leisure decision; it's a maths decision for them. Like it's a total cost of ownership sort of a decision. And when comparing ICE counterparts, incumbents, in comparison to electric vehicles, maths kind of suffices and works day in, day out. And specifically in our domain, where we are very heavy and aggressive on a three-wheeler kind of a segment, maths plays really well for us. So from a commercial standpoint, I definitely see a strong hand of electric vehicles, maneuvering ways of kind of getting into and buying more electric vehicles. But from a technology standpoint, and me from my background is specifically technology, and I'm kind of representing technology today. Adoption of electric vehicles is more natural. Reason being, all electronic parts, everything inside vehicles kind of converse internally and converse with the cloud as well. So that transparency of electric vehicles within our customers is well represented, accepted, and that is kind of, you can see the stalls having commercial or fleet management solutions kind of putting out and people adopting to it and people accepting that as a data point. I see that as a great plus. And lastly, we discount that a lot, but home charging is a bliss. You do not have any alternate in ICE. You cannot refuel, you cannot have petrol in your homes, right? You have to go to a fuel station to refuel your vehicles. Versus in electric vehicles, you can still charge, you can still refuel your vehicles using home charging.
Mr. Sethi, you are an expert in logistics. So, from your point of view, what is required to be done to convert your total logistic fleet into electric vehicles?
Thank you, Raisa. And I thank entrepreneurs team to actually organize this such a wonderful panel, and all my colleagues. It's so nice to be with them. Before I actually start on the discussion, I would say that I come from New Delhi, and unfortunately, we are the top 10 most polluted cities of the world. And being a transporter all my life, so we were always targeted as the devils of pollution. Like people used to think that it's only the transporters which create pollution. Rest everything else is emitting, you know.
That is extended to the total auto industry, actually.
Yeah,
Don't worry.
actually.
You are not alone there.
Correct. So, and and the kind of pollution we've seen in Delhi, the kind of levels we've seen, and I have experienced it myself. My 8 years old daughter has breathing problems because of pollution. So, when I decided to take up on all my sleeves and change my, I was doing pretty well. So I've established two companies in logistics. But when I started Blue Wheels, obviously, there was this feeling in me, there was this thought which made me do so because we really wanted to do something for the environment. I mean, if we can just only talk about it, I mean, we've just seen people talking about energy, climate change, and everything, but doing nothing about it. I mean, all those sessions, all those presentations have gone in down the drain if nothing has to be happen on the ground, right? We have to take that first step. And I think, right, when people ask me that EVs, take power from non-renewable sources, still I would say we are doing our bit. 30% of tailpipe emission is just getting done away with commercial vehicles. And when you talk about commercial vehicles, the real usability is that the kind of operating costs which come for an EV are almost one fifth of any commercial trucks. You start from a three-wheeler if you're going for a 16-wheeler. I mean, depending upon the geographies and demographies of where these vehicles will run, the kind of cost benefits the customer would get once once the supply is regulated, once we have ample supply from all the grid and everything, in the years to come, I'm pretty sure that, you don't have to sell EVs just for the sake of it, just for, giving it as a silver lining for climate change, but it will definitely be a solution which would be cost effective, environmental effective, and eventually the best for Indian logistics because we already have the highest costs in the world. So to cut down to that, to actually make it a viable solution, I think EVs is the way forward. And the bigger the trucks, the bigger the asset utilization, the more the juicing of the asset, the OPEX would definitely set off with a high CAPEX. So my two bit is that, down the line, EVs is going to be the future. And all of us, we've seen how predominantly the passenger car segment is growing, the two-wheeler segment is going. It is all because when you adopt a technology, it takes time for it to mature. The EV trucking is just started in India, but it is a long way to go. And I see a very, very bright and green future for it.
Thank you. Mr. Akshat, you had some exposure to cell manufacturing. So we all talk about the acquisition cost of the product, and everybody blames the battery costs for the high acquisition cost of the product. So, what is your gut feeling about the way the battery prices are moving, and when will they come down as being expected in India, especially so that electric vehicle penetration will improve?
Right. So, thank you for this question, and thank you everybody for staying with us. Thank you organizers for organizing this. Uh, as Exponent, we build battery packs. We do not build cells. But the way we work is we do 15-minute charging, 0 to 100% of the battery. And while doing that, we offer a 3,000 life cycle warranty on the battery packs as well. Now, the problem we are actually trying to solve is around mobility. And when we think of mobility, it's all about freedom. I, as a user, would want to go wherever I want, whenever I want, and that's what mobility is all about. And that is what has been done by an IC industry over the last 100 years. That they've given us that freedom, so that today, when I own a vehicle, I can do whatever I want with the vehicle out there. And when we are transitioning that to an EV itself, there are certain challenges which needs to be overcome. One is your range anxiety that we will talk about. That hey, can I do as many kilometers as I want in a day? Which in his mind is a range anxiety, which but in actually is a charging anxiety. That okay, in IC vehicle I don't worry how much my diesel tank size is, but I care about how much battery capacity is there on the vehicle when I'm buying an EV. Second is a very important data point, but if you look at commercial vehicle specific last mile, your 78% of the population actually do not have a dedicated parking. So the concept of that I'll do an overnight parking and charging does not exist in India. People park on the roads under the flyovers, and imagining them all of India to go electric is not possible. And third is the charging time. Okay, I'll rely on a public charging ecosystem. Today in IC world, I go to a CNG station or a diesel station. I spend maybe 10 minutes to 30 minutes depending on where I'm going, and I am top it up and I can run. So I don't want to wait for 2 hours or 3 hours to go around that itself. And while doing all of these things, the price point becomes an important factor. I can't decide to buy a battery of 200 kilometers range or 300 kilometers range to offset that. So net, what you want is you want a solution which can charge faster. I want a charging network that can reliably charge, and I want a vehicle which is low on my per month EMI cost. Because in the end, any driver or any operator does a monthly sort of a TCO analysis that how much I am earning every month and how much I am paying every month. And the entire ecosystem is built on financing. So the solution there is one, yes, the cell prices are falling down. The battery innovation is happening in India, which is bringing the battery pack cost down. Second, can you build a smaller battery pack wherein your range on a single charge may be less, but you give enough comfort to the customer that, hey, I need only 100 kilometers range on a single charge, and I'm still able to run 200 or 300 kilometers a day whenever I want because I am supported by a charging infra which can charge faster and can reliably charge, which is another big problem. And third is, can I finance the asset over a longer period of time, which is my batteries should last 8 to 10 years. Can I get a leasing or a financing of the battery for 5 to 7 years? I think that's where the industry needs to move to bring the cost down for the end customer and the transporters and everyone to make sense out there.
Indirectly, don't you think this will happen if you adopt the battery swapping system? More or less, the battery cost is not part of the product cost, and you're not paying the battery cost upright. So he charges it whenever you are replacing the battery pack.
Correct. So I'm saying it's a finance problem, right? So you can always have a finance solution where you do not need swappable battery. For example, today we have already launched products wherein you can have a fixed battery on the vehicle, but for the consumer, he can get battery as a service or energy as a service out there. Wherein, while technically you get the vehicle with the battery, but the financier or the leaser is treating vehicle separately and the battery as a separate asset class, and you pay per kilometer for battery plus charging or only battery as how much you want to use it. So you don't need to innovate on swapping as a problem because there are two problems that come with swapping in general. One is even when you're doing swapping, today if you look practically, your charge swapping time practically is 45 minutes, out of which while 3 minutes or 5 minutes is actual swapping time, your 40 minutes is spent because your batteries which are being swapped take 2 hours to charge. So your queuing becomes a fundamental problem, and the more you scale up, the problem aggravates even further. Second is, as a consumer, I am paying for extra batteries in the system.
Yeah, correct. Thank you. Mr. Sethi, I just want to understand in your logistic fleet, are you also having electric trucks? And what capacity trucks are you using?
So, we started off with the bikes and three-wheelers, but since we come from a background which is predominantly logistics and trucking for the last 15 years, I was in the weight of a product which is, the right mix, right fit for the market. We had the first product coming out of the Ashok Leland family, but that was so expensive that, when you actually talk about the unit economics, it didn't really work. So so what we did, we were waiting for some product, and one fine day we were approached by the Kalyani team, the KPATL, and what they've done is a beautiful thing. They've just repowered it, the retrofitting of old diesel trucks into the EVs. And these trucks, so they have a GVW of 12 tons and payload capacity of 7 tons and a 22 feet container body, are running so well. They're a 90 kilowatt battery with a range of 120 kilometers. So they're right now running between Mumbai and Pune. And even my customers who's running, I mean, I can't just name them. There's a India's number one paint company, and they were flabbergasted with the results of the vehicle. We sweating that vehicle for about 300 kilometers a day, and it is giving them at least 8 to 10% of cost saving on the diesel trucks. So, this is what I said earlier also. When you talk about EV trucks, the kind of run, if you can actually sweat it beyond that usual 100, 200 kilometers a day to actually 300, 400 kilometers a day, the delta which you get from the operating cost is so high that it can easily, set off your capex cost. Plus, it can actually give your customer the benefit of the discount of actually electrifying his fleet, not just for the sake of it, but actually making some money out of it.
No, I have one basic question. Is electrification of heavy duty vehicles the right solution? Or we should wait for other technologies to evolve, for especially in case of trucks?
See, there are many different types of trucks. When you talk about trucks, we start off from a SCV to an LCV to an HCV, and then maybe the higher ones, right? But to the level of LCVs, I mean, to the level of where the GVWs is 16 tons, I think the EV trucks are the way forward. But when you actually go forward, because of the pricing of the battery and the infrastructure requirement, the LNGs and the hydrogen fuel cells are going to be the game changer. So I predominantly not just, I'm not vocal about just one particular technology. I am game for every alternate technology which could actually become a green technology, which is a zero emission technology, right? So we are all here for, I think, I mean, obviously for an EV, because EV is what is available in the market today. But if you want to complete, want to give a solution to the complete diameter of trucking, right from a, N1 category of single ton trucks to a 55 tonner trucks, you would have to have a mix of all the technologies. We could work with EVs, we could work with fuel cells, we could work with LNGs. But so Blue Wheels is focusing on the LCV segment because our mid mile is almost 45% of the total transportation of India. If we can actually create an impact at that particular segment, I think we've done our job.
Yeah, to add to this, I think there are multitude of factors it would depend on. And first and foremost thing I would like to ask whether we have an option or we don't have an option. So if there's a government mandate, like for example in Delhi, aggregator policy says that you have to get to EV in 4 years. You don't have an option. You can't wait for the technologies to happen. You have to work with the available technology. Second thing I would like to draw from a morning conversation with Junjunwala sir, which you mentioned. See, so long till the time we have the cost of the vehicle and running it for 1 year, less till the time we achieve that it is less than a ICE vehicle, we won't be having adoption. So, in case of three wheeler, yes, it is. In case of trucks, I think still something has to be covered. Another thing in this is if I have to talk a long shot on this and whether it is going to work or not, I feel that up to 300 kilometers, I think intercity like Bangalore, Chennai, Bangalore type, I think EV would make sense. Beyond that, probably I think other technologies have to be evaluated because beyond that, the size of the battery would going to eat up either the seating capacity or the luggage capacity of the vehicle, and it is going to be too heavy, difficult to manage. So I think up to 300 kg, yes. Beyond that, it is to be seen.
Thank you. No, because as I was discussing in the previous session also, government is again pushing for electrification of heavy duty vehicles also. So a lot of think tanks are actually working with the government to promote e-trucks. I mean, my personal view is that I think it's too early to work on electric trucks. I think we have good traction in case of two-wheelers and three-wheelers, and to some extent the commercial passenger cars. So we should focus on these things and wait for maturity of technology or some alternate technology coming up for heavy duty trucks to be converted into or adopting electrification or alternates technology for these applications. That is my personal view. But I mean, government is actually or pushing. I don't know. I understand that even FAME 3 is likely to have something for trucks electrification also.
I would just like to just add one part on it. That when I don't know if you guys know that almost 45% of trucking has been converted into EVs in China, and right from 5 ton to even 50 ton, it's running smoothly from BYD, which is giving 8 lakh kilometers worth of warranties and 10 years of warranties with longer amortization schedules, and the cost of running an EV truck has come down drastically low, and the logistic cost in China has dropped down to a level. So I think it's just about time that we adopt the technologies and learn from our neighbors, even if we don't like them. But the technologies should be in open source where we can actually learn from them and apply it on ground, and then probably go for it. And EV trucks are not something new. So last I heard, I mean, only last month I've got a newsletter where it was mentioned that one Tesla truck has done about 1,000 miles on a 40 ton of Pepsi load, which had 300 kilometers worth of mountains and gradient of 12 degrees. So that is what EV trucks are capable of, and I think there's a long road to go. And let's just wait what is in store, and every early mover has to take that pain of doing that.
See, I have very limited, smaller points to add. In fact, in both of these discussions, where we were discussing swapping and where we were discussing trucks, when we say electric, we predominantly assume it's a lithium ion, while when we actually talk about electric, it actually means converting electrical energy to drivability. So it could ideally mean any fuel cell. It's an umbrella word to encompass everything along. So ultimately, the intention is to bring electric vehicles, but which flavor of electric vehicles? Let that be hydrogen fuel cell, or let that be lithium, or within lithium, which chemistry to belong to? It's a different topic. Maybe efficiency, sizing can be probably discussed and debated more. On swapping of battery packs, it's a extremely important discussion to have thermals for battery packs, and swapping for battery packs can be a pivotal role for maybe smaller battery packs. But when you talk about bigger battery packs, let that be for three-wheelers, even for four-wheelers, when you have a sizable batteries, in that case, when you maybe swap battery packs, the liquid lines and maybe probably the thermals that we have to solve becomes an operational hassle as well. So we would not want to introduce a failure point when we have maybe swapping of battery stations in that.
Yeah. Couple of things which I would like to add here is, in case of EV, there are few things which are established, maybe in India, maybe outside India, as Chanpit mentioned. EV vehicles have emission which is almost like 40% of a ICE vehicle. B, the efficiency of a EV vehicle is almost like 3 times what of a ICE vehicle. And C, the most important thing is the cost is almost like 20% of ICE vehicle. So put all three together, it's a sustainable solution which has been established. I think rest of the things are going to flow in future. That's why I said it's to be seen.
Actually, my view is not against electrification of trucks, but I feel that we should. Maybe we should not do it right now when we are importing most of the parts required for electric vehicles. We should wait for things to get localized and peak volume so that we have the benefit of cost and availability locally for these parts. Then maybe we can extend it to heavy duty trucks. My point was that at this juncture we should focus on two-wheeler, three-wheeler, and maybe commercial passenger cars, and consider electrification of trucks later when we have established the supply chain for electric vehicle. That was my point. I am not against electrification. And also by then, hopefully, the hydrogen technology should also evolve.
So I slightly differ. While I agree that we should do localization, so completely agree that India has an opportunity to take a lead. Like we have been playing the catch-up game from the IC world for the last 100 years. EV resets the level playing field. Everybody is starting from scratch. So India, and it's a lot of electronics and softwares, electricals out there, of which we have so much talent in India. So Indian companies can actually make in India for the world out there, right from product development and manufacturing and everything out there. So on that track, we should definitely do all those innovations around there. But even for adoption as such, I think talk about efficiency, talk about commercials, everything, it is already ready. And if you look at battery as a piece, I mean, automotive companies in India, we are the third largest automotive industry in the world. And from that perspective, all the mechanical components we've already mastered in some sense. And your battery charging is another piece which is new to the entire world out there. And battery, if you look at it, cells is something which we import as a country, which there's a parallel track on in advanced cell chemistry. There are a lot of tenders, a lot of incentives from the government to set up cell manufacturing lines. But if I look at cell manufacturing and cell import for India also, unlike a IC ecosystem where I'm buying a gasoline or a diesel or a petrol or anything, I am paying to buy a fossil fuel which I burn. Whereas when I'm buying a lithium ion cell, I'm actually importing lithium in the country, which I can recycle and use it when my cell manufacturing ecosystem actually goes up. So from that perspective, I mean, why should we stop now? Like the entire ecosystem has to come together. It's a long journey. We should actually go and say, okay, I can electrify medium duty trucks, let's go for it. I can electrify heavy duty trucks, let's go for it today. And let other ecosystem catch up so that we lead the way faster than wait for 5 years or 10 years and then start that journey again from scratch.
No, I fully agree with what you are saying, but the point is, at this juncture where we are talking about, big penetration of electrification with imported systems, and when we localize, it will not be easy for the users to switch from one source to other source. The way auto industry works, having worked in auto industry, it's not easy to switch sources. So I am concerned we maybe get stuck to imported parts for life of that model. That is one concern.
Correct. I think that's the job of people like us in the industry, like who has to solve this problem. That like today, like for example, we are cell agnostic, so we can take any cell and make a battery pack around that. We can take any vehicle and we can make the battery of any voltage.
No, it's not just cells only. No, all other parts are also imported right now. So when you are talking about big volumes now, so you have to give commitment to the suppliers.
Correct. So
and once you give those commitment, it will not be easy to switch over to the local supplies. I mean, that's a big concern. Auto industry faces this regularly. Because when we used to localize imported parts, this is the biggest problem. Because if some commitment has been given for imported sources, you have to respect that.
Fair point. I think that's, as an industry, we have to solve for it. India needs to take a lead into product development. And adoption and development has to run in parallel is what my view is.
Thank you. Any questions from the audience? Yeah.
We'll take one question for the day. Anyone? Can we have the mic from our host? Okay.
Yeah.
Just one question for the day. And we'll have the speakers available for you. Post that.
Yeah, my name is Anand Patil. My question is to Mr. Sethi. That lot of corporates are now looking at their sustainability targets, in which they also look at logistic partners, especially in terms of scope 3 emission. Yeah. So do you see a requirement coming from the corporates that yes, we are looking at a commitment from the fleet agencies also, that what percentage of EV would you go in future in a phased manner? Anything of that sort is coming to you from your corporate customers?
Thank you so much for your question. So when I started this startup, when I was just raising my first round, so one of our investors asked me, what's the easiest, what's your weakest point and what's your core strength? So I said, my core strength is weakness of every other company existing, and my strength is the weakness of every company. So I'll tell you, customer acquisition comes in so handy to us that even if the lowest stakeholder of my company writes a mail to the biggest of the MNCs of the world telling that we are electrifying your fleets and making your sustainability goals achieved, they'll reply back with all the VPs being tagged on the mail and they'll ask, come please change the fleet. And when we actually sit down with their procurement managers and the CFOs of the companies, they'll only ask about the costs. So the sustainability question just, fumes away, I don't know where. So they would never want to pay any premium on it. We don't really want to charge it, but everything comes at a cost. You need to balance it out with the value creation which is being created. Right? It's not just about a logistical solution. It is something which is actually helping you to achieve your ESG goals. It is actually making you, converging your, energy sufficiency. You become a sustainable company. There are too many factors which play together. So all of the corporates, let alone the corporates, I'd say even the SMEs, even the good conscious customers are now coming to us to actually electrify their fleets. But the only thing which is actually becoming a deterrent in it is the cost, because the EVs are expensive. And now, I was just discussing with Manish about this. The only way we can actually make EVs a success is actually using the asset. And how we can do it, we can actually come up with a product where a vanilla solution to a corporate is to run it for them for about 10, 12 hours and then probably run the same asset in the local market for a spot market, so that the OPEX can actually set off the CAPEX. So my first two bits toward all the corporates who really want to electrify, don't just, talk about sustainability, act upon it, and the cost which you would actually incur in the first 1, 2, 3 years, by the time the financing cost, the lithium cost, the charging cost, the eventually the capex, the vehicles. Once you have all the legacy players coming with their own models, I'm pretty sure the cost of vehicle will get down. Financing, once the biggest of the biggest banks, PSUs, and everyone will start financing, the financing cost will come down. The availability of the energy, if there is sufficiency, all the CPOs would be not charging us a bomb, but definitely a regulated price would come in. And then the tailwinds from the government will definitely make a use case which is absolutely equitable to the diesels and CNG trucks. So by the time we'll be there, I assure you that you'd see almost every 1 in 10 trucks of blue wheels to every corporate working in India. Thank you.
Your question. अभी तो end है ना, तो free time है. Last question. One question. Yeah, please.
Hello, I am Srajan. I am a EV dealer in Davangere, Karnataka. My question is to Purvak ji. When I am also a dealer for commercial passenger EV three-wheelers. So one of the big question, you rightly pointed out that the guy on the who is trying to buy this vehicle has his maths right. But the biggest hurdle that we face is when he says, right, sir, you are giving me a warranty of 5 years and you say that the battery has a life of around 7 years. But what after 7 years? That's the most common question that I keep encountering. And we are also advised from our OEMs that don't reveal the battery price, because his entire maths goes for a toss if he knows ki such is the battery price right now. So how do we handle this question? And it's not about handling that I want to I want to know from you, but what exactly is the reality? 7 years down the line, where do you see about the battery price, and how do we use that vehicle that he has?
Thank you. All right, so there are 3 parts to it, and I'll be extremely candid while answering this. First is what happens after 7 years. You have multiple options of what you can do. You have secondary life of the battery pack. The OEMs, like for us, in fact, we have been trying, in fact, we have solved a lot of when our batteries comes back, what will be the value of the battery pack that will come back? What is the standard operating procedure of when the battery is handed over to us versus when they need a new battery pack in turn of it? what will be the cost of it. So that's a pretty transparent system that what we kind of entail to our distributors. That's a standard operating procedure that we've already given to our distributors to bring in transparency, as you mentioned, so that that subjectivity that the customers are having, like what will happen when they kind of cover that 7 years. Second part to that question is we are pushing our limits to bring the 7 to 10 so that they have peace of mind. There is a peace of mind program. I was kind of just discussing this with others. Like within Euler, we are pushing our limits and saying that every battery pack now you buy will just not be 7 years, because we understand like when these customers buy, they also have to sell this vehicle to have that down payment for the next vehicle that they buy. And the battery pack will be an important portion in it. So that's the second bit of it. We are pushing our limits to 7 to bring it to 10 as a standard feature for all our vehicles, let that be three-wheeler or any other product that we do. Third is when customers have a problem in middle, when they come back and say that they have a battery problem in middle and they want to understand that what will happen to the battery pack, and that's a kind of cocoon that all OEMs create because they don't want to expose of what will happen to the battery packs and how will we kind of cater that. So that's a transparency problem that we also understood, and that was a feedback from all our dealers that they were facing with their customers. And what we wanted to do was that these applications, that technology pieces that you have, like for example the fleet management solution that we give with our vehicles, now gives you and predicts that what is the exact cost of your battery pack and vehicle while you're using it, so that you don't have any questions. You don't have to go back to dealer to kind of ask like what will happen to my battery packs. It is already out there in your hands in the application that you're using. So that is the kind of transparency as a solution we are providing. Maybe I'm sure that Akshat would want to add more to it.
Perfectly aligned with the points that as industry, people will work around and we are solving to have extended life of the battery. Second is you have to establish the residual value of the battery, which will in turn determine the residual value of the entire vehicle when the customer resells the value. Third is, I mean, that's where the industry is now coming out, where we say, we also receive a lot of similar questions from the customer that, how long will the battery last while giving warranty? How do I trust that? And I'm saying I can solve that as a financial product also, where I say, you don't buy the battery. Battery is on lease for you. Today, you pay a per kilometer cost of diesel. You can pay a per kilometer cost of battery or battery plus charging, which means you can take the asset. The asset is still fixed with the battery, but financially, your vehicle without the battery is what you pay the EMI for every month. And your battery plus charging is a subscription-based model on the amount of kilometers you drive, you pay for it, which means you don't own the battery, like you don't own the diesel itself, and you are constantly using that on a per kilometer basis. So there's no point of whether the battery lasts for 7 years or 10 years or 3 years or 4 years. It's not your headache. It's the headache of a leasing company out there. So one is on the tech side, you have to solve for it, establish residual value. Second is you can solve it today. And these are products which are already live in the market. We've already launched these products wherein, you just pay per use on the battery and charging. Like it's the entire energy transaction. What is energy today in IC is the diesel or a CNG. In EV, it's battery plus charging.
Thank you, the panelists, for your active participation. And thank you, audience, for your patient hearing. Thank you very much.